Now Professor Sarada Thallam, Divine Feminine Under Siege, the narrative of Gangamma and Vasavi.
Respected audience, good morning. I am Professor Sarada Thallam. I come from Tirupati, SV University, where I teach. And today, I would speak about two goddesses of the Andhra region who have been venerated and their narratives which display that their feminine divinity has been under siege. The feminine divine is a unique hallmark of Indian culture and our theological traditions. How I would speak today is I would first speak about the contents of the paper, and what I speak about I will show the slides towards the end. So this feminine Indian is ubiquitous, dynamic, and a continuing tradition which mirrors the multifarious dimensions of Indian life and its religious practices. So this paper would probe into two devatas. One is a Grama devata, Gangamma, and the other one is a Kula devata, Vasavi. The Grama devata and the Kula devata are both celebrated in Andhra region. The Gangamma is extremely popular in Chittoor and Anantapur in a major parts of the Rayalaseema region, as also in certain parts of Karnataka. And the Vasavi narrative has as its center Penugonda of today's West Godavari districts. And if we look at it, why did I choose these village deities is that I understood that when I was reading on village deities, most of the discourses in English were Eurocentric discourses, imperialistic discourses, which unfortunately displayed a little or no understanding of the ethos and the culture and the soil out of which these religious forms of worship emerge. In my paper, I have sketched out in a detailed manner, right from the time of the travelers to the writers of the post-Muller era, and how it has been, a Eurocentric discourse with modeled on white Christianity. So the Indian forms of worship and the Grama Devata worship is perceived through the white Eurocentric imperialistic Christian lens. That is how I see them there. And unfortunately, the Indian scholarship also initially saw a facile, brain-laundered models until authentic discourses emerged later, all of which I have discussed in my paper. Now, getting back to the Gangamma worship. The name Gangamma is of immense significance to the parched Rayalaseema regions where rains are scanty. When compared to her coastal counterparts, Rayalaseema is pretty dry. Let us remember that to an arid soil and his inhabitants, water is God. And hence it is appropriate that the name Gangamma, a derivative of the mythical Ganga and a signifier of the prime natural element water and a bestower of life, is worshipped as a goddess here. In Rayalaseema, you have different forms of the Gangamma. You have the Thalapaka Gangamma, the Yaradoddi Gangamma, the Tathaigunta Gangamma, the Avilala Gangamma, and the like. It is believed that this goddess in her Ugra form can cause cholera and epidemics and famine. But she is also the panacea for all the problems since she is a mother goddess. So the conductor of the annual jatras like the Mariamman Tiruvizha in the Tamil Nadu, they are aimed at appeasing the deity and seeking her blessings. In Chittoor district, the Ganga Jatra is celebrated not only in Tirupati but also in the other regions like Kuppam, Srikalahasti, Panagalu, Punganur, Satyavedu, and Peruru. This paper, I would focus on the Tirupati Tathaigunta Gangamma Jatra and its intersection with the Pedda Gangamma of Thalapaka Gangamma and also with the Veshalamma temple in Tirupati. I mean, let me tell you, dear friends, that to study the Gangamma Jatra in Tirupati is by itself an enriching and an alternative experience. Since what happens when you think of Tirupati is that the town is almost synonymous with Lord Venkateshwara, Alamelumanga, and his brother Govindarajaswamy. Geographically, the Gangamma worship draws an interesting pattern on spatial and topographical lines, since the god on the hill and his sister on the plain form an interesting repertoire of worship. A holistic model of devotion emerges, since a Puranic god is fused with the Gramadevata's sister. And so the nexus is also cultural, since Gangamma, the sister, receives the sari, the bangles, the turmeric and the sindoor every year during the jatra from her brother. And every year during the Panchami Tirtham of Padmavati Amavaru, the Lord Malayappa, when he comes from the hills to visit his consort, he brings bundles of turmeric to be given for the Chakra Snanam, which is used for the Snanam of Padmavati Amavaru and the Sanku Chakra. So on his way, he stops before Gangamma, and she in turn offers her prayers. Coconut and camphor is given to her brother. So that's a beautiful relationship is established between the Puranic god and the so-called non-Puranic god. Tirupati has two Gangamma temples, the Gangamma of Talapaka. All of you could see it. It is near or just opposite the bus stand. And the Gangamma of Tathayagunta, initially they were all on the outskirts of Tirupati. Yes, sir. I will have it towards the end. Okay. That's it. And so the original iconography of the goddess is in the form of a stone head. And like many of the folk narratives of India, there exist multiple narratives of Gangamma also. I will just tell you one narrative. One narrative states that long ago there was a Paraya who learned Vedic Shastras from a Brahmin by concealing his caste identity. Subsequently, his wife, and he gets married to the Brahmin's daughter. Subsequently, she understands his real identity, and she curses him to be transformed into a buffalo, and the children to be transformed into chick, sheep and goats. And then what happens is that she hides herself in a snake mount, only to be discovered by her husband in the form of a male buffalo. And enraged, she kills the buffalo, cuts its right leg, which she inserts into the buffalo's severed head, applies the blood on her forehead as a tilakam. And the very common narrative states that Gangamma, as a beautiful young woman, she is harassed by a palegar or a chieftain of the local town. And but when he realizes that she is an Shakti Swarupini, he flees away from her. For 7 days he dons.
This goddess versus her own children also.
Yeah, that many narratives, madam, many narratives of Gangamma are there. This is one among them.
What happens to the children?
They are transformed into chicks and goats.
And then after that they remain like that?
Yeah, that's it. And then folk narratives, madam, in different forms. I will discuss that, madam, towards the end. And in her youth, there is a palegar who's a chieftain. He's besotted by her beauty. When he wants to marry her and molest her, he understands that she is a Shakti Swarupani. And so he hides in different places for 7 days. And Gangamma, she assumes different forms. And she dons different veshas. And in the vesha of a Dora and his minister, she finally annihilates him. Therefore, the Ganga Jatra every year in Tirupati, it reenacts the town with festivities for over a week. And to the Veshams, the celebrations are basically divided into two sections. The goddess who is disguised from Wednesday to Saturday in order to annihilate the enemy, and the goddess who is revealed. So the multiple Veshams in her disguised forms I would just give a brief outline of it. On Wednesday morning, she is in a single Bairagi. She announces the Jatra at major locations, and this is known as the Chatu. For the Chatu, a ritual mandala is created. And this ritual mandala is thought in terms of containing the goddess within the Uru or the town. The goddess cannot wander beyond Tirupati. And it is traditional for the native folks of Tirupati also, once the Chatu is done, until the Jatra is over, they prefer not to travel outside. And that afternoon, she comes in the form of a garadi or a snake charmer's disguise. And all these veshams are donned by two family members, one of the Kaikala family, it's a Reddy family usually, and a washerman family. These two family members don all the roles every day. And then on the second day, they are dressed up as male and female shepherds. And that afternoon, they are dressed up as male and females and ruffians of washerwoman caste. And then on Friday, they are dressed up as merchants or of the committee caste. And the male member sings, and the male member wears a black coat and dhoti, a garland of brinjal, lady's finger, onions, wearing a tilakam on his forehead. That afternoon, they don the vesham of sweepers. And they go around the entire streets of Tirupati, the Beri street and special streets where Gangamma is said to have wandered. Saturday afternoon is very specific, very important, because it begins with the guise of Dora. Okay, because it is in the form of a Dora or the prince that she annihilates the Palegar. And so they wander throughout the streets, all the streets till on Sunday morning, the Palegadu is killed. Okay, she is killed with a sword, he is killed. And that is reenacted. The Paraya holds the head of the Palegar, while a Dora Mantri touch the heads of the Palegar with the swords and circumambulated 3 times. And then on Sunday, and after this, it is the goddess in her revealed form. Then the goddess is worshipped as Matangi. The highlights include one of the worships as a Sunnapu Kundalu or lime pots, which are broken later and people collect it because it is considered to be very sacred. And then there is another form of worship when they are dressed with chaparams or small temple-like structures are inserted on their bodies. In between there were tridents also. Then the Jatara culminates with Gangamma appearing as Perantalu. Perantalu is difficult to be translated in any other Indian languages also. I did not find even a Tamil equivalent of it. All I can say is that it signifies an auspicious woman. She dons the vesham of Perantalu.
Yesterday there was a discussion on sati in one paper, and as one of the aspects of sati, what she was mentioning was Perantalu.
Yes.
So sati could be another word for
Perantalu, sir.
So that sati, which is actually the immolated woman, it's not that. But a Caribbean term was coming from that paper. A Mutaiva, Mangala Sri, that becoming deified. A deified Mangala Sri is sati. The word
like Perantalu, yes.
From Mahabharati community she was mentioning. It is the same.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so what she does is, as a Perantalu, she goes there, and by the time the head image of Gangamma is created, it's a beautiful and democratic, because every sect among the Hindus is included in this democratic and inclusive form of worship. The Babas give their hair to be pasted on the Gangamma head. The extremely so-called, I use it in inverted, so-called menial people, they do all the sedentary work there. Then the potters come and mix the clay. Then the goldsmiths come and chisel the head, and they make the small imitation jewelry. She's beautifully decorated, Gangamma, on that day. And the Perantalu comes, and what she does is, first she cuts the cheek of Gangamma. And after that, she is totally cut. Gangamma is totally cut. The head is broken, and which signifies the ultimate dissolution of the cosmic spirit with the universe. And this disintegration is also a reintegration of Gangamma into the cosmic plane from which she has entered the universe. And Tirupati locals, they take pride in collecting the small pieces of clay decay, and they preserve it in their house because they think that Gangamma and the super form cannot be brought into the house, but in this minuscule form, she enters the homes and she blesses them. And so it is a highly democratic festival, and there are some Western scholars who have worked on it, but a more authentic narration of the Gangamma stories by Professor Petasri, who has written it in Telugu, and he also has an English translation of it. This is about the Gangamma story. A parallel, another woman deity I'm speaking about is Vasavi Kanyaka Parameswari. The antiquity of Vasavi is dated up to the 10th century AD. Somehow the Vasavi deity has not been spoken about by the Western Indologists or by the Indian Indologists. If Gangamma is a Grama Devata, Vasavi is a Kula Devata, the goddess of a particular clan or a Kula, the Aryavaishya or the Komati caste who were originally from Andhra Pradesh. And her story was first penned by Bhaskaracharyulu as Vasavi Puranam, as he was the Kula Guru of the Vasavi's family. But much later, the text gained prominence after it was rewritten by the later Vaidiki sects. And the story goes thus, that the siblings are born on earth after Vasavi as Virupaksha and Vasavi. Vasavi is actually an avatar of Parvati, and when they were in heaven, when Parvati was in heaven, once Nandi praises Shiva for his dance, but he does not praise Vasavi for her lasya, and he does not praise Parvati for her lasya. Parvati is angry, and when she and Nandikeshava they quarrel, Shiva curses them to go down to be reborn on earth, and they are born as siblings. The sibling is Virupaksha, and so Vasavi and Virupaksha are siblings, and they are born to Penugonda's king, King Kusumasreshti, and the queen Kusumambika. And Penugonda exists till today on the banks of the Gautami river, a tributary of the Godavari. And these children are born after immense tapasya through a Putra Kameshti Yaga. Both of them are well accomplished. But what happens in the course of time is that when Vasavi grows into a young and a beautiful and an accomplished woman, King Vishnuvardhana, he visits the kingdom and he asks her father for Vasavi's hand. But the father does not yield easily. He holds a great assembly at the Nandikesava temple of Penugonda, inviting his 714 Gotra members from 18 towns under the advice of Bhaskaracharya. 612 Gotra members agree for it, whereas the 102 Gotra members do not agree. A warlike situation emerges, and Vasavi herself is less inclined towards a political life and a mundane life, and therefore Vasavi seeks to avert war. How does she act as an ambassador of peace? That is, on a Magha Suddha Bidiga day, she indulges in Atma Balidanam. It is a self-annihilation as opposed to self-indulgence. Along with her 102 Gotra members, 103 fire pits are kept there on the banks of the river Godavari, and all the 103 members, and out of the 102 Gotra members, only the elder couple, the husband and wife together, they enter into the fire pit. Vasavi and her parents also.
102 did not agree.
Yeah, they did not agree. And so they enter into the fire pit. And after entering, they all of them, they seek an end in the fire. They die in the fire. But Vasavi emerges as Parvati, and she reveals herself that what she is. And what happens is that these people, the 102 Gotra members, are washed away of their sins of 16 generations. Okay, that is the purification which they receive. So King Vishnuvardhana, on hearing this, he is disturbed. He goes to the place, and his head is shattered into smithereens. Then afterwards, his son Rajaraja Narendra begs her forgiveness, and he offers his entire kingdom to her brother. but she does not, but and also to the 102 Gotra members, but they refuse it. But he forcefully has to hand over the administration of the kingdom to Virupaksha, and he's supposed to be one of the best kings there. The 102 Gotra members, they take the sacred ashes, the sons take it, and they perform the obsequies in Kashi, and they bring the holy ashes in the form of lingas. And to this day in Penugonda, you have a street known as Lingala Vidhi, and the 102 Gotra members, the Gotrams are engraved on the pillar there. And Vasavi Kanyaka Parameswari temple has been renovated, and a few years ago you have a very big golden statue. And what you see is that both these narratives pose two different forms of femininity in India. One is an interesting part of donning disguises, and the other one
is the conclusion.
Yes, and the other one is a path of peace. Sir, can we have the slides, sir? The Tirumala Hills, then the Gangamma temple.
And that lady?
One of the Veshams, ma'am. One interesting aspect is that the men don the Veshams of women. That is it. And Gangamma is a woman who's dressed as a male and she kills a man. And the Western critics look at it as, Handelman says that she needs the role of a man to annihilate. But I would look at it in a different manner. Although she's a man, inwardly the power is a woman's power. It's the Devi power which is actually annihilating. It's a question of your perspective, where you locate yourself. If you are a Westerner, you would look at it that way. I'm an Indian, I know my nation and my ethos. I would look at it as a vindication of Devi's power. And the Pedda Gangamma Jatra. I mean, it is one Gangamma. The Pedda Gangamma, Chinna Gangamma, together you have it. This is the temple, the Devasthanam and the temple there.
This is in Tirupati?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. The Gangamma Jatra. And see, the Golla community emerging from the Kaikala house, the men who are dressed as women. The big goddess at Talapaka, before dawn. And it is this statue which is ultimately annihilated by the Perantalu. And the forms of worship include scolding, abusive language, which I see as a parallel of Ninda Bhakti. That is how I would see that. They scold, they shout abuses, and this is the Vasavi Kanyaka Parameswari, her place of birth. This is the recently renovated beautiful idol of Vasavi Kanyaka Parameswari. This is one of the illustrations of her.
So big?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It's a very beautiful, ma'am, a must-visit place in Penugonda, West Godavari district. This is a temple. It's basically the Narakeshwara temple there on the banks of the river Gautami. And you have the Vasavi temples throughout India, and you have it in Bangalore, you have it in Hyderabad, you have it in Chennai. The Chennai temple also have a place there, the Penugonda Vasavi Mata. Bengaluru and Chennai. This one, left one is Bengaluru, that one is in Chennai. The old Kotwal Chavdi Bazaar, inside that you have the temple. The Anantapur, Nellore. The Sunnapu Kondalu and the lime pots of Gangamma Jatra, the Perantalu, that's it. Kanyaka Parameshwari. Ma'am, the Shaivites call her Kanyaka Parameshwari. The Vaishnavites see her as Lakshmi. That is it. It depends with the advent of Vaishnavism there. Georgetown has a beautiful Chennai. Georgetown has a beautiful thing. Tirupati also has it.
I have one story, so I have already understood the history. So Vishnuvardhan's wife was Queen Shantala?
Vishnuvardhan, I think, ma'am.
Okay, so Shantala had two sons and Vishnuvardhan also had a son through another wife.
Okay.
And I know that the kingdom did not go to Shantala's sons but to the other sons. Is this story in some way connected with that transfer of power?
I don't know, ma'am. I should probably look into it. There are no books books available, ma'am. One or two Telugu books which look at it in a very different manner. I don't read Telugu, I read and write Tamil. That is it. But what I have understood from whatever sources which were available to me, and when I sat down for discussion with some of the people, and there are no papers at all on Vasavi narrative.
In case you find something in Telugu or Tamil, please let's be
Sure, ma'am, sure. I would like to write.
And Queen Shantala is another exemplar in her own right. I wish somebody had presented a paper on her, but we haven't got one.
Okay.
And so we should mention her in some way in this.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
In this.
I will take this.
Just one observation. Ma'am was mentioning about how Western scholars tend to see the fact that Gangamma changes into a woman, into a man.
Dressed as a man.
Dressed as a man. We even have parallels in the Mahabharata, so she even Arjun becomes Vihanal. So Kalyan Ishikandini does that to kill Vishma. So we are very much, we not new to the idea. The Westerners are new to the idea and they cannot.
That's what I said. That's what I said. I mean, why should she? What they say is that she needs a male garb to kill. That is, they see the outside, the external. But I'm looking at the internal. I'm an Indian. I look at the internal. Okay, it's my nation, my ethos, and I say the garb may be anything, but the inner power is the feminine divine power. Let us look at that.
So and also there is gender fluidity across
Yes.
all our traditions.
Yes, ma'am, this entire Gangamma tradition is a beautiful example of gender fluidity. Men are dressed as women. Nobody is ashamed. They wear a red and white sari. They wear flowers. It is a sort of they pray for it. Okay, they pray for it, and it's a vow also which they fulfill. Many people do that.